Okay, it is 5:30, so we are going to go ahead and kick things off with a virtual info session for Mountain City Public Montessori. This one is being recorded and it will get posted to our YouTube channel for folks to see throughout the open enrollment process. So just to make folks aware that that is recording, and we will go ahead and get started. Let's see, I need to switch over to my other tab with the presentation. There we go. Let's see. Okay. So a little bit about Mountain City Public Montessori. We are the only public Montessori school in Western North Carolina. We are located in downtown Asheville on a beautiful, quiet, tree-lined street, Church Street, right around the corner from Asheville Museum of Science, on the campus of Central United Methodist Church. They have a lovely 3-story education wing that houses our school. We offer a variety of programs similar to local district schools. We have free or reduced price lunch to folks who qualify for that federal program. Our lunch is provided by, this year it's provided by a company called Asheville Pro Kitchen that does home catering delivery type meals. And so they deliver a hot lunch to us every day on a rotating menu. They have simplified the menu a little bit recently to kind of make things a little easier post-Helene, but are rolling out their kind of more elaborate menu that rotates on a 4-week schedule. So that's available for purchase for full pay families, and then for free for families who qualify for free or reduced lunch. We do have a school bus and can offer transportation to families with an essential transportation need. So these are kids who the family might not have transportation, or who are getting transported to or from an after school program, or have a parent who needs to be at work really early in the morning, or something like that. We do try and give preference to our families with essential transportation needs, and then fill up the bus with folks who have transportation is really helpful for them. So we do have a school bus, and that's available to people who live within kind of the Asheville city limits. It's just one bus, so it doesn't go kind of all over the county. We connect with a variety of after school programs. So we have pickups at our school this year from Sun Tzu. We have a pickup from Asheville Community Movement. We have a pickup from Second Recess, which is located at We Rock the Spectrum Kids Gym down in South Asheville. And then we transport to the Asheville City Parks and Rec programs after school. This year we're going to primarily Stevens-Lee, but in previous years, last year we went to Burton Street. For the 24-25 school year, we'll be enrolling a total of about 160 students. This year, we're sitting around 140 students, so that'll be an additional kind of 2022 students for next year. We are currently at K7, and then we're expanding to include 8th grade for next year. So kindergarten all the way through middle school. So the mission of Mountain City Public Montessori is to provide equitable access to a high quality, relevant Montessori education to meet the needs of all students and strengthen our community. And part of how we do that is through our vision, believing that all students deserve access to a quality education that affirms each individual and enhances the collective by giving them an opportunity to practice living in and contributing to a more just society. So with that, I will turn this over to Rachel Shaw Marshall, who is our curriculum director, and she can explain a little bit about the Montessori pedagogy.
Hi, welcome. So the Montessori pedagogy, it allows for student autonomy from an early age. So even our littlest students here, our 3-year-olds, are encouraged to have independence. To one of the easiest ways of example of this is that they choose their snack, they go sit at a table, they open up their own snack, they eat their own snack, they clean up from snack, and they go put it back. So there's a piece of autonomy for themselves. But that goes through all the age levels. Each student is responsible for themselves in their learning and in their care. There's a 3-hour work cycle each day. So we have a work block of time that is about from 8 to 11. It's in that morning time period. And that allows for students to really dive deep into the curriculum, into the materials, into the lessons, so that they can engage with whatever skill or concept is happening, and they are able to broaden their concentration. So the 3-hour work cycle looks like a student choosing a material or a work to work with, and being allowed to do that for as long of amount of time as they would like, and without interruption. So in some philosophies, in some pedagogy models, there might be a 30-minute block, and then you break to all go do art or to all go do a science lesson. And in our model, there's this long period of time in which a student gets to dive deep into their work without those interruptions. It's a multi-age classroom, so it allows students to move from novice to mentor within their same classroom grouping. So the kindergarten and preschool are grouped together, so that's 3 to 6 years old. Then the lower elementary classroom is 1st through 3rd grade. The upper elementary classroom is 4th through 6th grade, and then the middle school is 7th and 8th grade. And these multi-age classrooms really do allow that student to learn a new skill, to be able to practice with that new skill, and then also be able to teach a younger student or a peer the skill that they're learning, so that they really do move from that novice in the classroom to that mentor student. There are hands-on materials in Montessori pedagogy. So what that means is that there are materials that you can use to understand a skill concretely before you move to the abstract. So in particular in math, it's a very easy way to engage with it. So you maybe are learning to add, for instance, or learning numeracy by holding objects in your hand and manipulating those objects before you even get to the point where you're writing it on paper and going 4 + 4 is 8, as a basic example. But hands-on materials apply to all the subject areas in our classroom. You spend 3 years in that same classroom, that multi-age classroom, like I was saying earlier. One of the benefits to this part of our pedagogy is that teacher, that lead teacher, knows each student very deeply and understands the needs that they have, the skills that they have, and are able to push and step back with that student and do that dance of learning with each student where they are. So having that 3 years in that classroom with that same teacher helps that relationship and that ability to learn. And it also means that our curriculum is a spiral. And so there are overarching themes and overarching lessons that are revisited throughout the 3-year cycle. So you might be introduced to something in your first year, reintroduced in your second, and then also introduced in your third. So you have those 3 opportunities to engage in some overarching curriculum pieces. Each classroom, the pedagogy really does take into account the care of the environment. We were talking a little bit earlier about that student autonomy, that care of self, being able to navigate, what do I need? How do I engage with that? Like for instance, with the snack example, being able to choose my snack, eat my snack, clean up from my snack. So that's all care for self. We also engage in care of the classroom environment. So the students are responsible for the care of the materials, the cleanliness of the environment. It really gives them the ability to have independence, the ability to have autonomy, the ability to create respect for their classroom environment by them being ownership. That was the word I was looking for. Have that ownership in their environment because they're responsible for taking care of it. And concentration is highly valued. Going back to that idea of the 3-hour work cycle, we have that big block of time so that students really can dive deep into their learning. It's not just we're doing math during these 20 minutes and then we're moving on, whether or not you understood what we were talking about, whether or not you got engaged and really curious and you really want to do this and now it's time to move on. It's really that individual child being able to interact with that hands-on material for as long as they need, with that unbroken concentration so that they get more out of their learning. And here at Mountain City Public Montessori, we have core academic subjects. We have science and math and reading and history. All those pieces are in every age level. We have cosmic education. That's a Montessori pedagogy piece. And that in particular happens at that elementary age grouping from 1st to 6th grade. But it's the idea that everything, all the subject areas, everything in the world is connected in these real ways. And so once you start learning about this and pulling at this string, it pulls in this subject too. And so you might be looking at a science area, but it also pulls in your math skills and it pulls in reading and it all connects in these very intricate woven ways. So cosmic education identifies that and is getting students' interest in a multiple faceted way. And then it also is about these overarching lessons. So there's a particular lesson that's talking about the timeline of humanity, the timeline of math. So how did math come to be and how are we interacting with math as humans today? And so all of these big, long timelines are really engaging in that, the larger picture of what math is, for instance, as opposed to just learning skills because we need to learn skills. So it's really connecting all of these pieces that we'll need in the real world. We do have our language curriculum is based in the science of reading, which is something that is a curriculum hot topic at the moment. But we do follow all the practices of science of reading while teaching reading and writing through our language curriculum. We do practical life skills, like we were talking about, that care of self, the care of environment. All of these are teaching life skills that we'll need as we become adults. And it's also looking ahead, interpersonal skills. This links with that too, that idea that in life, we will be collaborating, we will be working with others. And so building in those foundational skills of the social emotional learning and the interpersonal relationship skills of being collaborative and working together in projects. All of those are pieces and parts of our curriculum here at Mountain City. There's also a sensorial curriculum, in particular in the lower ages, so that primary classroom, the lower elementary. We're developing awareness of our senses and really refining what it means to see something and the different, so if you see a color, it's not just blue, but what tone of blue, what shade of blue, intensity, those kinds of pieces are also part of that sensorial awareness. And Montessori pedagogy is one of the benefits of that pedagogy is executive functioning skills. So being able to plan out a day, sorry, my light went off. Being able to plan out what are you going to do in a day, or being able to look at a project and break down what are the steps I need to do to be successful at this project. All of those skills are being refined even at 3 years old, as a 3-year-old decides, what work am I going to do? I need to go to the shelf. I need to choose it. I need to take it to my desk. I need to my table. I need to take the work off the tray. I need to do the work. I need to put the work back on the tray. All of these pieces and parts are developing these executive function skills that will help us later as that 3-year-old grows up and is interacting with longer projects. They'll have developed some of these skills along the way. And we have, I think I talked about this a little bit, but just to reiterate, we have a primary age grouping of 3 to 6 years old. Lower L is 1st through 3rd grade. Upper L is 4th through 6th grade. And our adolescent classroom is 7th and 8th grade. And we do all of those here at Mountain City. All right, what happens in a Montessori classroom? It looks very different from a traditional school. It certainly looks very different from the school tradition that I came up in, where I definitely sat at a desk. There were 25 kids in a room and we all faced the chalkboard and the teacher wrote on the board and we copied it. It was very much my upbringing in schooling. So when I first walked into a Montessori classroom, I did not know what was happening because it was so different from my experience. So let me explain what that might look like. So you see pictures here of various students doing different activities, and that's what it would look like. So when you are sitting in an observation chair in a Montessori classroom, you'll be looking at 22 students. Some of them will be like this group on the bottom that's looking at a map, a puzzle map is what those are called for geography. So they're working together on building a puzzle map. While another student I see on that same row, there's a student that is doing a writing, possibly a research or possibly a creative writing. Then we have on the other side of that, we have 2 students reading together and working together on some sort of reading writing assignment. So that's 3 different examples of groupings of students doing work. And then on that top row, you'll see math. There's a picture of what looks like test tubes. That's a racks and tubes material that's for division. So that student is working with their math. There's another student that looks like, I can't tell if it's painting, but that's what it looks like to me, that they're bottles of paint. And then the student on the far left is a younger student and she's doing folding. So this is a practical life lesson where she's learning how to fold. So you might be in a classroom and see all of these things happening simultaneously. So in this 3-hour work cycle, students are working on various skills at the same time. You'll see the lead teacher with one student or a small group of student giving a brand new lesson or a follow-up lesson. And you'll see an assistant guide walking around the classroom, assisting, helping students with their work, helping with conflict resolution, urging students to choose a new work if they're stuck on what they should do next. And the classroom is very busy with activity, but the noise and the focus are all on the works that are out. So at first, when you enter a room, because we don't know what to expect, it may feel chaotic to a person who is coming in expecting something different. Once you sit and notice and observe what's happening, you're seeing all of this intentional work from these students. And we are a public charter school. And so what that means is, yes, we are a Montessori school and we are a public charter school. So we follow all the state laws and requirements. We provide EC services, so exceptional children's services for students. We have IEPs and 504s. We use the beginning of grade testing and the end of grade testing. And also we use MAPS testing right now for mid-year testing. So we are doing these assessments that are required by the state and also helpful for us to understand where our teachers are. Not our teachers, sorry. Our students are in their learning. Our teachers use that information. And our teaching staff, we have NC licensed teachers as well as Montessori credentialed teachers. So we are required by the state to have 50% of our staff is a licensed teacher through the state of North Carolina. So that is one qualification. And we as a Montessori public charter school, our leads are required to go and have either be participating in a Montessori training to get a credential or have had that training prior to employment, and they are bringing that knowledge with them. Excuse me. I'll hand it back over to Brittany.
So we, as Rachel has mentioned, we in our primary level classrooms, we have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So those 5-year-olds are kindergartners that are enrolled through Mountain City, and they're part of a full day program, a full school day, just like our 1st through 7th graders. But the Montessori, as Rachel described, the Montessori pedagogy, a main component of that is these multi-age classrooms where students are moving from novice to expert, or novice to mentor in the classroom. And so part of how we meet that aspect of meeting our mission and providing these kind of high quality Montessori classrooms is by enrolling preschool students, our 3 and 4-year-old students, through a partner preschool program. So those 3 and 4-year-old students in our classrooms are enrolled through Little Grove Preschool, which is a private preschool. These students learn in the classrooms alongside our Mountain City kindergarten students, but are enrolled through that separate program. So if you are here and you are interested in preschool specifically, if you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you would be enrolling through Little Grove Preschool, which is a tuition-based private preschool program. They offer a half-day program. Their hours right now are 8 to noon, and she has a variety of different tuition options ranging from full scholarship to partial scholarship to full pay. So if you're interested in Little Grove, their website is littlegrovepreschool.org, and they will be beginning their enrollment process for next year, kind of simultaneously with when we begin our enrollment process. If you have an older student, we do try and keep siblings together. And so as she considers her enrollment for Little Grove, she's, often asking families if they have an older student who is applying to be part of our lottery, and kind of that sort of piece. Oh, and I'm on the wrong place. Let's see. So that brings us to our kind of enrollment procedures and how all of that works. So we have a variety of opportunities for you to come and tour the school and see the school in person, because I know, having been a parent looking at schools for my own kids, that's a huge part of it, is wanting to see the school in person. So on March 8th, which is a Saturday, we will have a drop-in event from 10 to 12. So you can come anytime in that window. We will have a number of teachers present. Rachel and I will both be present. So we'll have classrooms open, at least one per grade level. And you can come and you can ask questions, you can have deeper conversation, and you can really experience that prepared Montessori environment firsthand. There is an RSVP on our website through Eventbrite, so that we kind of have an idea of how many people that we're expecting. And so if you're interested in coming to that open house event on March 8th, then please go to the events page on our website where you got this link, and you'll be able to register for that open house. In addition to that, we have tours on Tuesday mornings. So we have 2 rounds of tours every other Tuesday, beginning in January and through the end of March. And so those tours, this year we're doing something a little bit differently, and we're asking folks to attend one of these virtual info sessions to get general information about the school, so we can kind of weed folks out where they feel like, oh, that's not a really good fit for me and my family, because there are such limited spots available on those Tuesday tours. So we limit that to 5 families per tour. So if you want to register for a Tuesday tour during school hours, that is also via Eventbrite. The link is on our website, and the password to get into that is Tour 2025. So if you are bringing, mom, dad, kids, you don't need to register for multiple people. That's just a single family pass, and it's limited to 5 families per session. So our lottery will open on January 1st. There is a separate lottery for each grade level. So if you have a rising kindergartner, if they're going to be 5 by September 1st is the cutoff, or August 31st rather is the cutoff for North Carolina. If they're going to be 5 by that August 31st date, then they're eligible for kindergarten next year. You would enter them into the kindergarten lottery. If you have a rising 3rd grader, you enter them into the 3rd grade lottery. It does not matter what day you enter the lottery. So it does open January 1st. It closes March 31st. Folks who put their name in at 6 a.m. on January 1st have just as much a chance of being drawn as folks who put their name in on March 31st, like right at the very end of the day. So our computer runs the lottery. It's done through a program called Lotteries. It runs the lottery, and then it will give us the results on April 3rd. At that point, families have 7 days to decide whether or not they want to accept that spot. And so you kind of have 3 things that you can do if you're offered a spot. You can accept the spot, and then it puts you into our registration process where you submit your documents and more information about your student and your family, or you can turn down the spot and then it will give it to the next person on the wait list, or you can do nothing. And if you do nothing when those 7 days pass, it keeps sending you reminders. And then at the end of those 7 days, it will take you off the list and offer that spot to the next person. So there's a few things that can happen there for that lottery. Does anyone at this point have any questions about the school or the lottery or enrollment or anything else? Turn this over to you all.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I do have a few questions. Thanks so much. I missed the first part of it because I was in the other meeting. So if you covered this, I'm sorry. Just kind of wondering the overall size of the school as far as so we would have a rising kindergartner, and she is no stranger to Montessori. So this is all very familiar as far as that part of it. I'm just kind of wondering, about the size of that classroom and the upper levels, and then also. Maybe this would be covered more in a tour, but just kind of like recess and outdoor space and kind of just like what the building and the space is roughly. That would be great.
Yeah, I can talk about the kind of class size, and then Rachel can discuss kind of the daily schedule a little bit. So we enroll typically between 20 and 22 students per class. And so that's with the lead guide and the assistant guide. So we have 2 adults in that classroom all the way up through the whole program. So at some schools, they stop having assistants as they reach the upper grades, but a huge part of Montessori is reliant on having those 2 adults in that classroom. And so at the primary level, what that looks like, just because of what I talked about with the preschool enrollment being done through another program, is we have about 10 kindergartners in the classroom and then 10 3 and 4-year-olds in the classroom. So we might have 5 3-year-olds, 5 4-year-olds, and 5 3-year-olds, 5 4-year-olds, and 10 5-year-old kindergartners. And so those preschoolers leave at lunchtime, and then the kindergartners stay through lunch and through the second portion of the day.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering about that with Little Grove and just kind of how that works.
And there
so
are
about
2 primary classrooms down at the primary level.
Okay.
We have 3 upper elementary classrooms that are similarly sized, and then we'll have next year 3 upper elementary classrooms as well. So it's 2 3 3, and then we have our single adolescent program. So Rachel, if you want to talk a little bit about the schedule.
Yeah. So the students arrive, we open the doors at 7:45 and our work cycle begins at 8. So work cycle is 8 to 11, 11:30, if we can stretch it out. What typically happens in those hours for the primary program, so the preschool and kindergarten students, is that they have individual and small group lessons for the morning, and then that ends in a small group, a large group. So they'll all gather as a classroom community of the 22 students and, sing a song or read a book or have that kind of large group time. And then they'll do their lunch and outdoor play. And then the preschool is dismissed. So those kinds of things are what is happening in that morning chunk of the day. And then in the afternoon chunk for that primary classroom, it's reading and math and, some academic lessons for the kindergartners that are focused on kindergarten lessons. And then they also have the opportunity to have creative expressions For instance, this year we have someone who's coming in to teach dance and someone who's coming in to do dance and theater, and then art, visual arts, and music. And so those activities would be also happening. And they also, the kindergartners will walk to the library or walk. We have a playground on our facility. And then we also share playground space with the Trinity Episcopal Church. So it's like, I'm pointing that way because catty corners to us. But they walk down the street just a little bit and then they go play on that. That playground has like swings. This playground doesn't have swings. So it's a different play structure. So they have that opportunity as well. And then for the 1st through 6th grade, it's very similar in the sense that they do morning work cycle and the afternoon activities. But 1st through 6th graders tend to start their day with a group as opposed to the kindergarten level. So they start their day with some sort of grouping. Sometimes that looks like all the students will come in. There's a journal prompt on the board. They're writing their journal prompt response. And then they might gather in that large group of 22 to say, you know, this teacher might say, anybody want to share what they wrote about today? And that might be a way of their starting their day. And then they kind of talk about what their schedule's like for the day. And then they do that work cycle where they're doing small group lessons, doing individual lessons. And then they'll close out that work cycle again with another group meeting that helps set them up for their lunch and playtime activities. Again, that afternoon section looks like dance, theater, visual arts, music. And then for the elementary classrooms, they do a larger chunk that's like a research chunk. So they might be doing large group readings or read alouds, that kind of stuff, but they also might have big work that's follow-up. So maybe they're studying about, the lower elementary was studying about planets and the solar system and those kinds of things. So they had large research kind of pieces with maybe a little bit of artistic approach to, I saw some models being made of planets and things like that. So they have these larger work blocks of time to really focus in on a project. And then the middle school looks very different to that as a daily schedule. So their schedule changes day to day, but the overarching idea is that they have a normal meeting in the morning to talk about their day. And then they have chunks of time that they do, like they might spend the next 2 hours doing a humanities project where they're learning history and ELA subjects mixed together. And then they might have another chunk of time that they're doing science. Then they have lunch and they play outside or they stretch their legs, and then they might come back and do a math lesson. So theirs is a little bit more chunked. It's not that broad 3-hour work cycle where all subjects are happening. They're transitioning to that next area of growth where you're going to math class in high school, you know? And so they're kind of doing both things at once. We do still have those long periods of time where you can really dive deep into your work, but it is more subject oriented blocks of time. Does that make sense and answer your question?
Yes, that makes sense. And I never did Montessori myself, but it makes sense to me that at a certain point you would transition to that, and just thinking about, you know, high school and beyond, being able to kind of have those subject-based. But that, I think it's really cool that it's kind of a gradual transition. And yeah, I think that's helpful. I did think of just one other question. So we live up in Weaverville. And I'm assuming from what I've seen on the site, it sounds like it would just be kind of your own transportation getting down there. Is that right? Okay. And lunch is available for purchase if you're not qualifying for. Okay.
And we do have, I connected with a person who created an app called Carpool School. And he had been a charter school parent who had kids in North Carolina, who had kids at all the different charter schools, I think around like the Raleigh-Durham area. and was the carpool manager at his kids' charter school. And so he developed this app that allows parents to sign on. You get a code to get into the Mountain City kind of portion of it. And then it helps you kind of connect with families who live nearby that you might not otherwise know. So it gives you a map view and where people live and what their availability is for carpool and all of that. So even if you're kind of outside of our busing area, there are some other options around connecting with families for carpool.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering those.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Hi, yeah, I'm curious how many spaces are available for the Little Grove students that are weighted for the public Montessori?
I'm not sure coming up into this next year how many there are. I don't think that there are very many. I think, and part of that is that they don't have very many 4-year-olds this year. It's a very 3-year-old heavy classroom. And so I think that we're potentially looking only at 3 or 4 Little Grove students trying to move up into that kindergarten for next year. So
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
How many spaces do you guys reserve for those students at the
Yeah, so
school
we
for
don't
the
necessarily
Little Grove
reserve any spaces. There is an enrollment preference for kids coming up from Little Grove. And so it's really about, how many of them decide that they want to move forward with Mountain City. So we have, 22 kindergarten spaces for next year. And the kind of preliminary, I think, work that our Little Grove director is doing with those families, it sounds like 3 or 4 of them intend to enroll in Mountain City next year.
So 3 or 4 of 22.
Yeah, I think she has 19 or 20 preschoolers currently enrolled. And so, in any given year, she might max out with 10 if she's got 10 4-year-olds and every single one wants to move up into Mountain City, but there's not like a set number of spots that Mountain City is holding for Little Grove. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So they have a preference. Does that mean that if they choose, they will? Because I know they might not get in, but is it highly likely that they would get in?
It's highly likely. So there's like a few categories that have preference. There's siblings of currently enrolled students. So if we've got, a 4th grader or a 5th grader and they have a sibling that's coming up, there's preference for like staff member children, like that kind of thing. And so, it depends sometimes on how many of those kind of preference spots are getting, because there's a percentage that we can fill with the preference spots. So, in any given year, we might be looking at like 5, 6 spots with some kind of preferential enrollment kind of criteria.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had another question. I don't know if you want to get to the one in the chat, but I also am curious about, I know that within Montessori, there's like a very community oriented philosophy, but I'm just curious if there's like a bullying policy in place for the school system as a whole.
That's a great question. And yes, there is. Yes, you are right. The Montessori philosophy is about that, building that community. And really, we do try to foster the idea of taking care of ourselves, taking care of each other, taking care of the place that we're in. And, there are moments in which you need to investigate if there's something else happening and something else going on. Other than, kids having developmental characteristics that show up on the playground or in the classroom. And yes, there is a system for a report coming in and then us identifying staff members to investigate that report and to support the students involved to make sure that they're safe while the investigation is going on. And then while we're determining what the best next steps are for supporting both the students that are involved in that. Did that answer your question, Amber?
Yeah. Yep. Great.
There is a question in the chat or a comment in the chat. Yes. So talking about that, the work cycle, we were talking about that 3-hour work cycle and what you might see and the different works that you might see, and talking about that the student will choose a work, and this long extended cycle helps them be able to really dive into the skill or concept they're working with, the material they're working with, for an extended amount of time. So there's really the ability of that student to decide when they're done with that work and when they're ready to break their concentration. And a part of that, it is the 3 hours and the unbrokenness of that work cycle that helps them really dive into this deep flow state, is the phrasing on this comment, and that concentration piece. And it's also the environment and the teachers in that environment, understanding that is a necessary part of learning and really trying to protect that. So when we are trained, we are learning to observe for those moments and really trying to keep all the distractions away from those students who are in that deep flow state or in that concentrated space, so that they can keep going. So it is about the work cycle itself and the length of time. It is also about the environment and how it's set up for helping that. Did that help with that, whoever left that comment? And are there any more questions about it? Yeah, cool.
I had another question that came up as I was asking about the bullying.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like thinking ahead to middle school, even if there's any kind of like discipline system in place. Like I'm thinking like at Evergreen, there's like Love and Logic. So just if there's like what that looks like, especially as kids get older.
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Mountain City, well, in the Montessori pedagogy, there's the understanding of the whole child, and that behavior is an expression of need. And so when something is happening within the classroom or with the student, that they are expressing something is needed, and we as the adult are trying to figure out what is that need and to meet that need. And so at Mountain City, what that's called is our system of justness. And we are engaging and creating this just society in our school, in which we are looking at behaviors through that lens of what is the need being expressed and how do we meet that need. So our system is called the Nautilus system. And it is, the Nautilus is a shell. It's like a spiral. And so our idea is that in the classroom, the student, there might be a student who is doing something that's disruptive or demeaning, which you're talking about, bullying, or dangerous, or those kinds of things, that those types of behaviors will kind of trigger a response, this Nautilus response, which is calling an outside adult in. And for those 3Ds, the dangerous, destructive, and I always forget that other one, Brittany. Dangerous, destructive, demeaning. Thank you. And so that person will come in and engage with the student in questions like, what's going on? What do you need? How can I help you? And really try to get those needs met. And once that happens, once that student is de-escalated or or regulated or whatever's happening for that student, they are then brought back to the classroom to re-engage. So going back to that spiral picture, so we're going back to work or going back to community or back to relationship. So the Nautilus lead is responsible for helping to reconnect that student to decide like what needs to happen in order to restore. And so if you're familiar with like Oh, the word just left my brain. Oh, and it's an R word, but there's restorative justice, like those kind of processes. It's similar to that idea. And so the other piece of that is that our staff is all trained in this process. So if it's something that's not one of those 3 days, if it's a behavior that's just interrupting a work cycle or interrupting another student, our lead teacher and our assistant teacher are also trained to talk to that student about what's happening, what's going on, how can I help, let's solve this need or identify this need so that you can get back to work or so that you can restore that relationship with your peer. Did that answer your question? That is something that goes all the way through our school. Starts at the 3-year-olds, goes all the way through the 8th graders. Another piece of that coming up for me at this moment is conflict resolution is a big part of the Montessori pedagogy. And even our 3-year-olds are starting to learn, to identify emotions by words and also to resolve conflict through words. So when someone pushes you on the playground, you can say, I didn't like that. Please don't touch my body, those kinds of things. And then, the student can start, the other side of that is teaching students how to say, I'm sorry, or what you can say to restore that relationship. So it starts at a very young age and it continues all the way through.
And for folks who really want to nerd out about this kind of stuff, about constructivism versus, behaviorism and, restorative practice and all of that, I just put a link to our YouTube channel in the chat. And there are a number of kind of family education sessions around what Nautilus looks like at Mountain City and what the system of justice looks like at Mountain City. So if you're the kind of person that likes all of the information, there's more than you'll probably ever want to know on our YouTube channel.
Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah. Any other questions from folks?
Am I right in remembering that y'all are a pretty new school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just
We are. Last year was our first year. And so this is our second year. So we're still kind of in our growth phase, which is why we're adding that 8th grade class next year.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to hear, I'm sure you could talk about it for hours, but yeah, very brief, kind of like, where you're at in the process. And maybe I'm new just to the idea of charter schools, honestly. So this is just our first child and only child. And so I guess like what the expectations or hopes are for parents, like considering that it is a brand new school, I think that'd be really helpful to kind of understand like what your hope for family engagement is.
Do you want to talk, Brittany, like growth and what's happening there? And then I'll talk family engagement.
Yeah. So we were very fortunate when we were writing our application to find this great location where we are. We really love being downtown, and it has been kind of a huge part of like early in the school, what has helped start to sculpt our identity of who we are. And that, our facility is small and we have this amazing resource of all of downtown to feed off of. One of the first conversations was, where are we going to put our school library? Oh, wait a second. We don't need one because we can just get all of our students' library cards and go to Pack Memorial Library because it's walking distance away. And so that has been really a fun piece of how we as an urban school are connecting kids to the community. And so in our current location, we are able to grow to a max size of around 180 students. We are kind of always thinking about how we grow beyond that, but we can grow pretty much to that size and stay there as long as we need to in our current space. Downtown real estate is at a premium because we have really very quickly enjoyed this downtown feeling. We're not itching to move out to corners of the county anytime soon. And so, yeah, next year, looking at that growth from 140 this year to about 160 for next year. And then we'll add another 20 the year after that. And then that'll be kind of where we stay long term while we're in this location. Was there another piece I was going to answer? Oh, as a public charter school, just like a little bit of the difference there is that all of our funding, so we are tuition free, but we are kind of held to, some of those same accountability standards of any other North Carolina public school. The difference is we don't have a district. So, rather than being, having a central office that's making decisions for a large number of schools as part of a larger district, we kind of are our own, superintendent, transportation director. Rachel and I wear a lot of hats around the school, depending on what kind of decisions are being made and what's going on. So our funding does come from the state of North Carolina. We get a per pupil allotment from the state that is similar to what other schools get, per pupil allotment. And then we get a local supplement as well from the home district of the child. So if they're from Buncombe County, that comes from Buncombe County schools. If it's from Asheville City, that comes from Asheville City schools, Madison County, et cetera. And that's like based off of the local educational taxes and things that are fines and forfeitures, things that are happening at that local level. So that's how, and then we receive some federal funding for students with disabilities and et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of how we operate. But we are kind of subject to, accountability through the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. We answer to DPI, all of those pieces too.
Yep. Yeah. And as far as family engagement, we are a young school, and there are many opportunities as a family member to get involved in the creation of what that looks like. So we have formed a student family organization, and they have started having events and are reaching out to do things like, bring in little treats for the staff on their birthday or those kinds of things. But then also meeting together. We at Post Helene, we had a group of families that were meeting together to share grief and share stories and support each other in that way. So there are pieces and parts that are coming along, and you are not expected. Like coming from a private school lens, which is my background, you were expected to volunteer X number of hours as part of your participation. That is not an anticipation of or an expectation of our school. You are participating in any way that you would like to participate with engagement. We do have a family engagement opportunity about once a month, either through the school family or the student family organization, or through the school putting on like an education night. So we might have a topic that then we bring our Montessori coach on to give you a lecture and some discussion questions around. It might be something like that. It might be like Brittany put this link to our YouTube channel. We might have a virtual discussion or lecture that's posted to give you more information. That's also a way we engage families. And then we have conferences twice a year that where you can come on campus and talk with the staff member in that way around academics and testing. And then our staff is very good about communication and reaching out to families and engaging about whatever topic you would like to say with the student that you have. So multiple ways to connect or don't connect.
Great. Thanks so much for the info.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, certainly as we go through our enrollment period, if you have questions that come up, you are more than welcome to reach out. The email on our website, info@mcpublic.org, goes directly to me, and then I can send that along to whoever is best equipped to answer your question. If you're interested in learning more about us or seeing us in action, please do sign up for that Tuesday tour. Again, the password to sign up is Tour 2025. So we hope to see some of you in person at those events as we have them. And registration opens in January. So thank you so much to everyone who joined us tonight. And this will be up on our YouTube channel. If you missed the beginning, this will be up on our YouTube channel probably at some point tomorrow. And then you can share it with all your friends who might want to go to Montessori Charter School with you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. I have to stop recording. It's not letting me leave.